What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode number 9 of the Zero Access Footy podcast. My name is Rhys, otherwise known as Northy. I am joined by Behm, otherwise known as the Premiership Quarter, and a bit of a somber note to start on today and a sadder note. As I walked in today, producer Ethan said I looked homeless. It's a bit of an unrelated note, but thought I'd mention it as it hurt my feelings.
I said you were rocking the homeless look. I didn't say.
No. You said I was homeless. This was before like 2 minutes ago when you mentioned the part where you said you make it look good, but you said I looked homeless and I don't like it. So, producer Ethan is.
He goes, we're starting on a somber note. I go, okay, maybe he's going to mention the Pope passing or something. No.
No. Something much more serious.
Note to audience. Rhys cannot buy a Mikey, and yet he claims he doesn't like the homeless look.
Way to go at me there. That was really nice. But anyways,
love ya.
Anyways, we're gonna move on to what we've got on in today's episode. But of course, if you enjoy what you hear here today on Zero Access Footy, be sure to subscribe and leave a like if you're watching on YouTube. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. We are very close to 100 followers over there. Great stuff.
So impressive, isn't it?
I know, isn't it? Close to 200 on TikTok, though.
Ooh.
That's even bigger. So be sure to check us out over on those platforms, as well as Spotify. If you cannot visually watch this podcast, then use Spotify. Just listen to us. Listen to our beautiful voices. So we're going to get straight in to what we've got this week and have a look at the ladder, because the ladder... It's looking a little different, especially when I compare it to 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
So the Queensland dominance has been overtaken by producer Ethan's. What's the Star Wars fleet, like the Empire, the Dark Empire, whatever the hell it is, the Empire.
You mean the winners?
The evil Empire.
They've struck down Order 66.
That's it, and they are now sitting on the top after beating the reigning premiers, handing them their first loss of the season, and now. There are no invincibles.
Correct. And you know why I said Order 66? They've played 6 games and they have conceded 396 points. If you do a bit of quick math, they're conceding 66 points every game. Order 66.
You're a nerd.
Bit of Star Wars knowledge for you there.
I hate you so
Oh,
much.
shut up. You're so old. You watched the first 3 movies when you were 30 already. Okay?
So, some big things to point out. Adelaide have now jumped. They have, I think they were, 6th last week? They were 7th last week. So Geelong sitting in 6th position. They actually haven't moved, it looks like, from their win, which is very strange. It looks like Adelaide's jumped in, but Hawthorn's gone down. So knowing that, they have stuck in their position. Of course, saying that, Hawthorn have gone from first and undefeated to 2 losses in a row. So my top 4 guaranteed tip is not looking great now. But they are still in the 8. The Dogs, with their big win over your boys, unfortunately, they sit now on 8th position. So they still are the definition of mediocrity. But I'll tell you what,
we're still
plus Bontempelli could put them over the top this year.
We're still in there. We're still sneaking in every week.
There you go. Well
we're
done.
Sneaking in
I was gone a long time ago. But Essendon, they sneak in.
No, you're still there. Look at Port Adelaide's next game. You're still there.
Yes! Yes! Let's go. But yeah, Port Adelaide, they got their win against Sydney, so big win there. Sydney is a notable one to mention that they are not on this list, which is insane.
I had them first. It's not looking very good, is it?
I think they're sitting 14th right now.
Ooh,
fantastic.
Shit.
Fantastic. Richmond is also one that's not on there, but we'll point out
Richmond.
as things kind of move along.
Yeah.
Let's look, though. Round 6. What is your thoughts on the first Thursday night game?
Well, I had Lions winning by 10. You had Lions winning by 11 because, you can't think on your own. Sheep.
Did I?
Sheep. Yeah, you had Lions by 11.
Oh, fair enough.
We were both wrong.
By a lot.
Yes. Collingwood are looking absolutely fantastic. They've got 5 on the track, and their experience has really shown out so far this year. They are defensively extremely solid, as we mentioned. And they're just so hard to move the ball against. The elder players, they know exactly where they need to be. They know what decisions they need to make when going forward as well. And they know the game plan to a T. With the younger teams, it's really hard to, sort of implement a game plan. It's their first 2-3 years in the system. Whereas with the Pies, it's so much easier to adapt when you've already got the experience. And for them, they're showing that with the newer plays. They're still doing this without Dan Houston as well. They're able to rest players, which they're going to be doing throughout the year. Tim Membry didn't play as just one name. And so they're just sort of finding avenues to win. Nothing absolutely crazy, but aside from this game, which was very good. but they're just finding wins in every different way.
Yep.
So
It's a mix of premiership experience. It's a mix of just pure games experience as well.
Yep.
Their young talent continues to play really well. Ned Long is one. Like you'll think of your obvious Josh, Nick Dacos, and all those younger. Behm
fantastic.
who's one of those rough and tumble type of guys.
Yeah. Bobby Hill's been really
Bobby
good.
Hill's been fantastic so far, but Ned Long is one I really want to point out because when good teams still manage to find great young talent, it just makes them scarier. And I mean, Ned Long has been a fantastic addition to the team. He's not just slotted in; he's actually excelled with this group. This group of boys, which is fantastic for Collingwood fans. Unfortunately,
very much unfortunately.
But we move on.
I did want to touch on briefly with Brisbane. Their forward line had looked solid to start the year. Obviously, there was a big talking point without Danaher that it's going to be tough, and they really struggled. Like there was a bit of inaccuracy, but Hipwood was nowhere to be seen. Logan Morris really struggled. Cam Rayner has not had a breakout year that many thought he would, finally having the opportunity to.
Charlie Cameron also has been a little quieter than
they've
usual.
all struggled, and if they want to get back to the best, then that's where it starts because they're always a forward half team. They try and be too slow with their ball movement. They try and be a defensive team. That's where they struggle. That's where they started really slow last year because their forward line wasn't getting involved. They probably want to bring in someone else tall to be able to give Morris and Hipwood that support and allow Rayner to be able to not be on one of the best key defenders. So adding someone else probably helps with that. Darcy Ford has been very good. We'll have to see. But that is the avenue to success for them.
Yeah, well, we've seen signs throughout the start of the season that the Lions have been beatable.
Yeah,
they just hadn't been beat until now. They've been comeback kings, even against West Coast, in a team they really shouldn't have needed to come back from. But nonetheless, this is where it has ended. The Pies looking as dominant as they did 2 years ago. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep it up for as long as they have. Darcy Moore was the only one that I was concerned about, considering he was the big knee that was very that will be talked about later on. But he's cleared to come back. He's been cleared for the next clash, so he's avoided concussion. So
thankfully,
great stuff for the Pies. We move on. Good Friday. I'd like to not talk about this as much as possible.
So all we'll do is you tip the Blues by 20. You were still way wrong. I tipped them by 3. I said if they win 85-82, you'd give me $50. They almost didn't. So go Carlton. They won by 82 points. They won by 82. They didn't let North score 82. They won by 82.
Yeah. So fantastic times in the Roos camp. It's just more of the same, unfortunately. I don't know.
It's embarrassing.
It's very tough as North fans to keep positivity, especially when they don't give you many things to point out. There's been the few, like the very good win against Melbourne, like a solid win. That team just hasn't shown up since.
Nope.
You could say that, it's against Melbourne, but I feel like Melbourne is a team that is very on and off, as we've seen this week. I am just really upset by the fact that we just keep having these massive lapses. Like, not even just regular, lapses of, they've kicked 3 goals and got a bit of momentum. Let's drag the game back in. They kick 3 goals, and then we just fall over until the next siren. I mean, we talked about last week where we, in Gather Round, where we had managed to keep it close up until just about 3/4 time, and then they ran over the top of us. We just couldn't stop them until the siren went.
Yeah.
And same thing happened here. Exactly the same thing, except just more dominant. And I just hate that it was against Carlton.
You guys suck on Good Friday too.
It has been a trend that Good Friday is not a good day for us. It's great for the kids. I remember the year we got smacked by the Dogs, and they were giving out
Josh Bruce
thousands of dollars per goal, and I'm like, just doing it for the kids, man. Just doing it for the kids. Fantastic stuff. But yeah, it's just another unfortunate week as a Roos fan. But for the Blues, I had mentioned in the previous week that this was a must win. They didn't just win, they dominated.
I cleared them by far.
And that's exactly the signs they need. George Hewitt was fantastic. So I think while I had said keep putting him in the midfield, I think one thing that I had done for my research is he has been midfielder for quite some time.
Yeah.
Sam Walsh and Paddy Cripps didn't even really need to have a fantastic game.
George Hewitt been goated since Paddy Cripps got moved forward.
Yeah, Hewitt has been doing fantastic. I assume Paddy Cripps kicked a few goals. I'll double check here, but
I've got no idea.
I think I wanted him to try a bit more of a forward game. We look here. I have not heard of the name Will White before, but he kicked 3.
Walter White.
Paddy Cripps only had 1.
Okay.
So
He's just providing an aerial option, I suppose, with no Macca and no Brody Kemp.
yeah, that's it.
It's just help alongside Kerno.
Yep.
But you didn't want to talk about them too much. You talked about them enough, I think.
Yeah,
They're just a basket case. You reckon LDU's embarrassed that he signed that deal after the
I don't
Melbourne
think he's
and Adelaide
embarrassed.
game?
From what I've heard, he's just
Would he be regretting
He couldn't
it?
imagine from the words he said. He's like he couldn't imagine playing outside of the core group that he's kind of grown with. So that's your Jai Simpkin, your L Max, your Aiden Court, like the ones he's kind of being brought. Hey, if those guys are the ones that keep him at the club, I'll be happy. Right?
Jai Simpkin lines it up like Jimmy Webster lined him up.
That's so cruel, bro. You're the worst, man.
Thanks, mate.
I need a new co-host.
Anyway, thanks. I love you too. Absolutely blessed.
Let's move on.
Yes, West Coast. This would have been such a good tip by me. I tipped West Coast and they almost got over so close.
Very, very
so
close. You don't think that they'll be with that winless even. They won't be winless for very long.
No, with that kind of performance.
With a performance like that, they've got some players who definitely could take them over the top, and they nearly pipped them. Very nearly pipped them. I think Essendon fans are rightfully worried because they've had games where they've looked pretty good.
Yeah.
But this was not one of those games. They've just been lucky to come out on the right side.
Yeah, they were lucky Peter Wright kicked 6 goals. They were lucky that end of the third quarter they got 2 free kicks. I think it was 3 that actually led to 2 goals that were able to tie them up because I don't think they deserved to win the game. I think West Coast was the better team. They showed more heart. It was just unfortunate that in the end
they left it too late.
Correct. They kind of did, but kind of didn't. Almost ended up getting the game on their end by the end because they kicked a couple goals really late, like really really late, and then had 26 seconds to be able to kick another. Just couldn't get it from the centre bounce.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to see West Coast win this because this was one of the greatest hate watches I've ever done. One of the greatest hate watches I've ever done.
Yeah,
So,
and the biggest news out of this one being Sam Draper.
Done
His
his Achilles.
unfortunate injury, which
Yeah.
again, injuries are awful. And in a game where you won, it feels like there couldn't be more negative headlines for Essendon. So very unfortunate indeed for Sam,
Yep.
especially considering he's in like that. He's potentially
Contract talks.
his
big time.
last game for Essendon. It is presumed at the moment that he's going to stay at Essendon. That's what the rumours are saying.
It's presumed, but at the same time, with the article last week saying that he's now an unrestricted free agent, it's very much up in the air.
It absolutely
is.
is. But yeah, again, could be his last one in an Essendon uniform.
Yep.
The only ones that I can really mention outside of that, Zach Merritt was a little quieter than he usually is. He still had the 26 possessions, but 1 tackle, which is very unlike him.
Yeah.
Nick Martin had a good game. Obviously, you mentioned Peter Wright, but then we go to West Coast side. Waterman with 4. It feels like it's been ages since we talked about Waterman.
He kicked 4 in the first quarter, though. That's the thing.
He could have had a fantastic game.
All of his goals were in the first quarter, and then he almost didn't touch the ball for the rest of the game.
Jack Williams with 3. He had 3 goals. Jeremy McGovern doing his thing. I mean, he will forever be. I feel like he'll forever be underrated.
Always.
He even made All Australian last year. He's still underrated.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Elijah Hewitt with 2 goals. Very nice.
He's a really good player. I think the signs that he's shown to the start of this year has been fantastic. He's one that just give him the opportunity and will shine. He's already done so in a couple of games this year on return. Just almost give him the keys. Get Harley Reid slowly back into the midfield and let those two just take you forward because those are the 2 that will be game breakers.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on.
Other WA team.
Defeating the Dockers.
Yeah.
There you
surprise,
go. Melbourne getting their
surprise.
first one.
Mhm.
A lot of these guys' first wins coming from big, surprising games.
Yeah.
What is it now? North beating Melbourne was kind of a surprise.
At the time it
At
was.
the time it was.
Yeah, Tigers
D's beating the
defeating.
Dockers, absolutely.
Tigers
Richmond
defeating.
beating Carlton.
Yeah.
We know that. And later on, we'll talk about the other big upset. But the big ones to talk about, Cozzy with 5.
Yeah.
5 goals for Cozzy. Fantastic. Max Gawn playing his I say old. He won it last year. He started off not as great as we've seen him before.
Nah.
But this game was classic Maxi Gawn. What you wanted to see. Trent Rivers, who you said you wanted in midfield, worked like a treat.
Oh no, Simon Goodwin's watching Zero Access Footy.
Jake Dowie was also a nice little surprise.
He was very good. He's officially better than Christian Salem. in my opinion.
Yeah,
Officially better.
yeah, I'd give him that. And then most surprising about all of this is that this is with Hayden Young back.
Yeah, first game back, yes. The most surprising thing all game for me was Cozzy Pickett. He was sublime all game. He was the most clinical player on the ground. He was getting everywhere in a battle that, potentially his new team, he was the best player on the ground, quite clearly, probably alongside Max Gawn. But towards the end, Melbourne started off really, really strong. They were able to get out to a good lead, and it was a really strong battle. Like, they kicked 71 points in the first half. They kicked 74 as their highest all year before that. So Fremantle's backline has some questions now with the fast ball movement from Melbourne. From what I watched, they'd started to be a kicking team in the last couple of years. We saw that, and they struggled to do it. Even at the start of this year, Oliver hacking the ball forward, Viney hacking the ball forward. They finally started to utilize their ball movement by hand, which is something that Collingwood do, and it's something really hard to stop because a lot of teams now with their zoning defense, they'll do one man up. So everyone, you play your zone defense, and then each man steps up to try to stop the ball. And when you continuously do it by hand and you can get your chain going, it's so much harder. And once you get the ball forward, you got like a 2-on-1 or even a 3-on-1 at times because it just means it's so much harder to defend. And being able to do that consistently is going to be the question for Melbourne with this ball movement, how a team's going to try and stop it and everything. But it put that Dockers defense under a lot of pressure and they fumbled pretty hard. And even though they did come back and almost won it at the end, Harvey Langford looking awesome as well. He kicked the sealer. And when they were trying to kick the ball out after Melbourne shanked a couple kicks forward, they just continuously kicked it to Max Gawn, like directly on his head, every single time. I think Ryan did it one time. I think Jordan Clark did it 2 times. Like every time they try to go down the middle, kick a goal from that. It just sat on Max Gawn's head every single time. And Sean Darcy could not compete with him whatsoever. It was a really poor outing from him, I thought.
Yeah. Final thing I mentioned about that game is no Bailey Fritsch as well.
Or Van Rooyen.
So it makes you think, Elvo Roy. So it makes you think, do they change up how they play into their forward line? Because clearly it's shown that Cozzy Pickett and the kind of rough and tumble ball inside forward looks to be a winner for him. It looks to be a way that they've found to their best scoring. You've got Harrison Petty with 4 as well.
The question is it causation or correlation?
Yeah.
Is that the reason they started to move the ball really well, or is it just something that happened alongside them being taken out of the team? Because if they have those weapons in the forward line firing with this type of ball movement, it probably puts them back into top 8 contention. But if they have to now move forward away from those two, it brings in some questions to both their list development and how they want to coach. Because realistically, having Van Rooyen, having Frisch, having like a Matt Jefferson coming through, Aiden Johnson as well has been very good for them. Those are their key forwards, basically. That sort of brings into question how they've developed this list and how they want to play with this list as well.
All right, next matchup. Crows beating the Giants in a really scrappy affair. 52-34 is not the score I expected from an Adelaide and GWS
you want to know
game.
what the score you did predict?
What did I predicted like 160 something to.
So you had Crows winning by 6 points, 163 to 157.
Quite the opposite, huh?
Quite the opposite.
Just a very out there kind of game.
Very much so.
Just insane stat lines too.
So sloppy.
Whitfield with 39 disposals and 10 marks. Dawson in there with 5 marks and 8 tackles. One of those games where it's like you expect some really, really big stat lines. In terms of the tackle count, Dawson with 8, Keys 7, Callahan 7, Bedford 7.
That's not that outrageous.
Is it not?
No. Rory Laird had 20 tackles in the game last year.
I know. That's what I'm thinking. And it's usually those scrappy, wet
it wasn't
affairs.
a scrappy game. That's the problem. It was just a horribly inefficient game from both sides.
Yeah, very strange.
Like you'd expect with a team that has still Thorpe, Walker, and Fogarty to be able to, hit some targets up forward. I thought Taylor, Himmelberg, and Buckley were really strong. And then on the other side, no Hogan obviously was a huge impact, but there was just no winner forward of the ball. Like Jake String, I think he costed them probably 4 goals in the end. He was absolutely atrocious. Completely screwed them up. And their small forwards just struggled to get into the game. Harvey Thomas, Toby McMullen, I think, played as well. Darcy Jones. Toby Green was a bit more involved, but there was no clinical finishing whatsoever in this game. Absolutely none. And I think it was 52-34 in the end.
Yeah.
They kicked 4 goals, 10
Tough to watch.
in a game of footy.
Tough to watch. And
Like-
I think the only thing I'll point out is Lockie Ash is having a bit of having a tiny breakout this year.
Mhm.
He's looking
He's been very good.
a little bit better and better each game. We'll
Yeah.
move on quickly from that one.
We both had Suns by 80.
Oh my
yeah.
god, the Suns just frustrate me so much. Everyone complains about how they have an easier schedule and how it's not like you can't say too much about the Suns. And this is the exact reason why. Because like Dimmer's got some kind of curse over at Marble. There's
lost
something happening there.
12 in a row.
There's something happening there. I mean, I say
Or something
something happening.
outrageous like
Something
that.
has already happened. He just it's something about Marvel with that man. But just I feel like this is classic Gold Coast. I
It
just
is,
feel like this is
completely.
classic Gold Coast. And I'm worried this is going to start off something awful for my sake and for everyone's sake, realistically. Let's hope that Gold Coast is just having a bit of a hiccup here because they should realistically be undefeated.
Oh, 100%.
The fact they have lost this game when they have beaten the likes of Adelaide, they've beaten the likes, well, they haven't beaten anyone too
No.
fantastic outside of Adelaide, really, but this is still one of those gimme games,
It's-
man. I just, I
how
can't
you-
stand
How are
it.
you down by 43 points against Richmond?
I just,
Taranto and Hopper were very good in the midfield.
Vlosten.
Oh my days. What a
Vlosten.
performance. Okay.
that's the first time I've seen them do that in ages.
This is arguably the greatest one-on-one matchup I've ever seen in my life between Nick Vlosten and Ben Long.
oh my god.
Did you see the mark that Ben Long took in the forward line in
No.
the fourth quarter? Oh my, it was so funny. So they're mounting their comeback, and I think there might be like 5 minutes left. He's like almost on the floor, and he just goes like crawling like a baby to get to the ball, and he gets there just in time. It's such a funny clip, and he kicks the goal from it. He was fantastic, Ben Long. He was the only forward that was actually leading up to the ball kick.
Finished with 11 marks for a forward in a game
outrageous.
in a
Yeah,
game
yeah.
like that is very impressive.
He was very good. He was
Taranto and
probably-
Vlosten, though, by far the best ones on the field.
Yeah, very clearly. I think Gold Coast now learn that you can't have a forward line of King, Reid, and Walter. I think that's pretty clear to see. Whether you go with Reid or Walter in the future is the only issue. They'll probably want to spend them all time together. But again, Mac Andrew looked really good forward with the ball when he went there. He just isn't physical enough when he does go down there. He's just doesn't have the body for it. That Noah Balta's return was the reason why I thought Banking had a poor game. He was fantastic. He kicks the ball about 80 meters whenever he kicks it as well. It's very funny to watch. But it's just such a disappointing game from Gold Coast because it's a chance to put yourself with 5 bankable wins. That even if you have a dip in form, you've already got 5 wins that you know you can rely on because you only need 8 more. You split the rest of the year. You go 8-8. You go 8-10. You've almost already made finals. So I think it's just a really disappointing loss for them.
Super disappointing. Should have been way too easy for the Suns.
Yeah.
But credit to the Tigers, of course, for the win. Shows that, I mean, they have these signs of fight that you don't see from teams so inexperienced like
No.
them. I think they just know they've got nothing to lose.
Mhm.
They really don't. We move on to game we both got wrong again. Swans defeated by Port Adelaide at the SCG.
Yeah.
The reasoning I went through, went with your prediction, is because it was at the SCG and Port aren't too great at the SCG. I thought, yeah, completely fair. But Zach Butters ate it up there. Horn Francis was very, very good. Lots of impact in 20 disposals. Kane Farrell had a great game. Rosie, really, really solid too. Just all over the ground, there were players that you could point to and go, they've done their job. They've done really well. Jordan Sweet with the 39 hit-outs on Brodie Grundy. So really, like, although Grundy got around the ground much more, Sweet did a very good job himself. Rioli with 3, Pal Pepper with 2. Port are very confusing this year.
It's almost like they're the Bulldogs again, where you don't know what you're going to get from them.
Yeah.
And their midfield's great. We know that. The move of Rhodesy to halfback, as you mentioned, has been a really good move. And then their forward line is just getting the job done. Like, really, Rioli kicked 3 goals. Georgiades is competing. Sam Powell Pepper's always a dog in a fight. Like, he just does not give up whatsoever. Ollie Lord's making sure the ball gets to ground. they're just doing what they need to at the moment. And we'll talk about a couple of things from this game later on, being the Tom McCunn and Aliir Aliir incidents. But it's just, I don't know what to take away from this game for Port Adelaide, because we know they can do something like this, but we also know that they can put out the St Kilda and Essendon performances. So it's about finding that balance. And then for Sydney, it's a tough loss. It's a really tough loss. When you want to start the year well, they're now 2-4 with a new coach. And some of the coaching decisions you have to take into question, 100%. I think they haven't got the best out of Warner or Heaney yet. They're still waiting on a lot of players to come back. Obviously, Noah Marty this week, but every team has injuries. Theirs is really bad, yes, but they've still got a fair bit of talent on this list, and it's just not performing altogether.
I'll tell you what, if they can find a way to bring the injured players back, scrap out a couple wins, I think the best for the Swans at the moment is a 6th to 8th position finish right now, and they could be a smoky. I think they're very open for smoky territory at the moment. We'll move on. Dogs beating your boys, the Saints, by a big margin. Give me your thoughts on that one, because you made me go through my thoughts.
I had the Dogs winning by 50.
Yeah, you technically were on the ball. So you expected it.
I knew exactly what was going to happen. Bontempelli coming back. Jesus on the Sunday.
Oh, man.
Christ almighty.
He
Why
was
does
good.
that have to happen?
He was very good.
30 and 2 goals in your return games. Absolutely outrageous.
But it's the Bont. You got to expect it from them.
Their midfield just killed us. I think that's where it started. We actually started pretty well. We kicked 4 out of the first 5 goals. Higgins looked good. Owens looked good. We were able to get the ball movement going. But then Darcy went down. And something that got pointed out to me is that it looked like we'd game planned so hard in trying to stop Darcy that once he was out of the game, we didn't know what we were doing. When he was in the game in that first quarter, in the first half of quarter, we were sending 2 to him in the air. We were able to bring the ball to ground, and then our ball movement got going. And after that, we just didn't know what to do. I thought maybe there's a chance we can chuck someone forward, whether that's a Caminiti, because he obviously has that experience playing forward, and you can chuck someone back. But obviously, because there's only Norton and Buku Khamis as the 2 keys, then we clearly didn't. We didn't have that aerial dominance that we can have if you have a tall forward, because even with Keeler, who's not really competing all the time, it provides someone that has to go to him and allows Owens or Sharman to be able to go against a medium rather than a key forward. And we just really struggled. As I said, our midfield was dog shit. Like Jack McRae gets the ball but hasn't really done too much in the last couple of weeks. And then Jack Steele. Oh my, what's happened to him? Someone needs to do a deep dive into him, because whilst I have been on the outer with him completely, it's just, this is worse than what I expected. Like, he was just nowhere. He needs a burst of speed, but he hasn't had that for 2 years. He's turned into Matt Kennedy, straight up. And Matt Kennedy outperformed him on the weekend. We weren't able to go with Richards. We weren't able to go with Libba. And then even our speed, something that we back ourselves on. Libba literally chased down Bradley Hill on the wing.
Yeah.
One of the most contested players.
Looks like Tony, to be fair, in his heyday.
I just don't get it. There's something with this team that just makes me want to absolutely punch a computer. But it's so frustrating.
The only big thing we're going, I mean, great win for the Dogs, but God, you'd feel like they're cursed with their injuries at the moment. Imagine getting so excited for Bont to come back just to half a quarter in now deal with another big injury, long-term in Sam Darcy. Probably one of the biggest talking points over the weekend
100%.
was the fact that, like, such a great form player is now going to see the sideline. Thankfully, not for the rest of the year, but multiple months is the report.
Yeah.
God, that sucks.
Very difficult.
God, that sucks. Not just for Dogs fans, just for all AFL fans, because I think everyone was getting around him. Everyone's like, my God, this guy is a unique player. He's such an exciting player too. But good and bad in the sense that good, he's not out for the rest of the year. Bad that he has to be out for such long term anyways.
Yeah.
We'll move on though. Final one, Easter Monday clash, and we were so keen for this one, and for good reason. It kind of delivered, didn't it?
We've been spot on with these best of games. We've been spot on.
Oh yeah.
Except for last week. Who did we have last week? I think it was Collingwood Sydney. That wasn't a great game.
It wasn't fantastic, but it's okay. I think it didn't end up being too terrible.
No.
Just was surprising how much Sydney kind of couldn't keep up with it.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Jesus, that was an awesome game to watch.
Like I said, perfect crossroads, right? Geelong off a fantastic win. Hawks coming off of a bit of a shock loss.
Yep.
This was a tale of two stories, and they both hit each other right at the perfect time and delivered. Really delivered. Manor had the sealer to win the game, just all over the ground, big things happening, and I think just thank God this was a big primetime clash on a public holiday. What a way to spend your Monday, huh?
What a way to spend your Monday.
Yeah, fantastic.
Absolutely awesome game.
I don't think we need to say too much about it.
It's been analysed to hell by everyone you know. It was just great to watch. We always get good rivalry games between these two. So cannot complain whatsoever.
Yeah, it's probably one of, if not the most famous rivalry. One of, I guess, quickly to point out some big ones. John Newcomb had a fantastic game despite the loss.
Yep.
We see Lloyd Meek. I nearly did your thing. He had a very good game. Yeah, it is. But then in terms of Geelong's, no outstanding plays outside of Manor.
In terms of watching the game though, Holmes and Smith were fantastic in the first.
They always are, and Smith is my current front runner for Recruit of the Year. I know I was on the McRae train for a bit because he had such a great start.
Yeah.
Smith has missed 1 week and been more consistent and has remained super important to this team.
He's probably number one. But going through the games, Macca's man of the week.
He's my man of the week. Yay, man of the week, baby. All right. Let's see. I have picked a 1, 2, 3 again, and I've got some honourable mentions this week because there are a lot of standout performances this week. First off, I want to go, my one vote is going to Nick Dacos.
Yep.
I've given him a vote purely based off the fact that he was leagues above everyone else in that game. Maybe the exception of Josh Dacos, his brother. They're just on a level that game. They were just ridiculously good. But Dacos probably had more of the impact in terms of with the ball. Had some fantastic plays. I watched that game and the way he could weave through packs. There's been games that I've watched with a critical eye, with Dacos because hearing how much people talk about him and how much they enjoy his play and glaze him, as some would say. I wanted to see against Brisbane, reigning premiers, what has he got? He delivered and some. My God, he looked so clean with the ball. He got hit, got back up, and continuously kept finding ways to break through and make great play. I just couldn't believe how clean he was too.
There was a moment where he got whacked by Rayner coming out the front of the stoppage.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Got up immediately. Well, took like a second on the ground and then laced someone out on the wing.
So not to glaze too hard, but that was a fantastic game from Dacos.
Ethan, we know you're glazing behind the camera.
Yeah, he's smiling back there. I already know for sure. But number two votes, I'm giving to Nick Vlosten.
Yeah.
Because he's such an outlier to what he usually does as of late in a team that definitely needs him to play really, really well if they're to pull out wins, and he absolutely did so. Despite it being an 11-point game, not only did he dominate, like that game got out to nearly 50 points. Richmond should not be winning by that much. They really shouldn't. And Vlosten played a massive part in that. Fantastic game from him. Very, very worthy of 2 votes. In my honourable mentions, I'll quickly spoil one, is Tim Taranto. Taranto is in there because I think Richmond deserve, especially beating Gold Coast, they absolutely deserve some praise.
Who are the other honourable mentions before we get to
before I get to number 3, my other ones are Sean Manor,
fair.
Bailey Smith, so 2 Geelong players, I think, in a game like that. Absolutely fine giving 2 people like that. And Zach Butters. I think Zach Butters was fantastic in that game against Sydney. Again, we mentioned that they didn't perform too well at Adelaide, but Zach Butters did his thing. Yeah,
I feel like Trent Rivers or Bowie could have been another honourable mention.
Rivers would probably get it. I think if I were to give another honourable mention, it'd be Rivers. Number 3, I had to give it to Bont. I gave it to Bont because of the circumstance, the fact he came back and played super impactful football. Like 30 disposals is fantastic on its own, but 2 goals. As much, and obviously when you're a captain, everything means a little bit more, but like he has been the best performing captain for years on end now. I think
Yeah,
I'm trying to think
fair,
on top of
fair
that.
shout.
Lockie Neal's a co-captain. Not to take anything away from him.
Max
And obviously
Gawn.
he's won Brownlow's, Maxi Gorn. You could absolutely shout in there. But Bonte's been so good for so long. I just cannot believe. I'm so confident at this point he's going to go his entire career without a Brownlow.
100% is not going to win a Brownlow.
And that's criminal.
Yeah, well, it is, but
That's criminal. I can't believe it.
we can talk about that at another time.
Yeah.
Because I've got
Probably
a
more
whole
towards the end
story
of the
about
year.
that. Yeah.
But that's my man of the week.
Love it.
We've gone through those games in fair detail.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at things happening around the games and around the league. And we'll start off.
Nothing's more topical than this. Nothing is more topical than this.
Honestly, despite the seriousness of the situation, there's just things that give me laughs about this one. Like we were talking before the podcast about this being like a really strange situation, like night games, him having to be subbed out, being the first player subbed out of AFL games
Due to a curfew.
due to court order. Like that's an unreal circumstance.
Wild.
But of course, Noah Balta in the news again.
Mhm.
Played his part in the game.
It was
At least
very good.
He's done his part. He's done his thing.
It was very physical in the game.
Oh my god! Again,
But-
how do you chat to that man? How do
Yeah.
you chat trash to that
Yeah.
man, knowing that he could whack you out? Oh god! It's just such a confusing
I
situation.
would have loved to see Mac Andrew go straight to him with the opening bounce.
So
It would have
confusing.
been so funny. But in terms of talking about what's actually happened with him, he has been given an 18-month rehabilitation program to go through, which is wild. If you're getting given a 1.5-year program that you need to go through, I think something more serious needs to happen. Like most programs should be nothing more than 6 months, pushing a year if it's something really serious. 18 months is wild. He was given a 3-month fine, $3,000 fine as well. 3-month fine would have been kind of crazy.
3-month fine.
And and a curfew, so he cannot go into state games. Unfortunately for everyone, they have 8 out of 9 games at the MCG. 8
What?
out of 9.
How have they done that?
How have they done that? What do you mean? 8 out of 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6. 6 out of 7. 7 out of 8. 8 out of 9. What do you mean? How have I done that?
So he can't go to the GMHBA one because he
Probably not, because it takes over an hour to drive there.
yeah.
So unless they do that during the day, which is still plausible.
But it has been mentioned already that he's going to be missing a few of the games.
Mm-hmm.
If I can remember correctly, it's actually on the front page of AFL.com at the moment. But I think he's not going to the Melbourne one because
Not
that one's
going to
happening
Melbourne.
7:30.
Not going to Essendon.
He won't be going to a few more that are happening as well. So MCG he could, but I think they're trying to take a safer approach to all of this, which I'm actually kind of okay with. So he'll miss his Anzac Day Eve game.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll also miss Dreamtime at the G, which is another late night game.
Well, that is the Essendon game.
Yep. He will also miss round 12, obviously due to it being in Sydney. And then Richmond's other scheduled games in the next 8 weeks are all day games in Melbourne. The schedule beyond round 15, which will overlap with Balta's punishment, has not yet been finalised.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we know that, but to me, it's just outrageous that he's been allowed to continue to play.
Yeah,
Just had
and
an
it feels
absolute
like
aneurysm.
the punishment outside of that is really like wishy-washy. Again, right, he could technically play the games that he's not going to.
He just has to get subbed out after. Wild thing to
Again,
say.
I love that. I think that's hilarious.
So
but-
bewildering.
It's just like, I hope he comes out of this on the right end. I hope that he's actually like taking it seriously and all of those games, right? Despite them being super nitpicky, right? You can go to this game because it's in the midday
Mhm.
and you're in Melbourne, but you can't go to this one. It's in Sydney. I hope all this like I can't even think of the right word to describe it. It's just a
It's-
very strange situation. I
It's-
hope it works out for him though.
It's almost as if he hasn't been punished, right?
It's
You
like
look at it,
it's like they're trying to give him
Fi-
best of both worlds, right?
Okay.
Punish him for what he's done wrong, but also not punish him too much that it affects his career. But it's not going to affect his career, is it
So
not?
he's been given a 4-week suspension, which is nowhere near enough, and he's given a $3,000 fine, which for an AFL player is absolutely nothing in their contract. And he has been given
Especially for Noah Balta, who's signed on to 2032 on a massive
Literally.
contract.
So he has not been punished for anything he did. Literally no punishment whatsoever. And he just gets to live his life as normal, basically.
I think, look, if this is the finalized punishment from the law, right? I'd imagine there's a lawsuit coming his way from the.
He's already paid them money. I think it was $45K.
Okay.
So they're not going to sue him.
They reached a settlement of $45,000.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
settlement
which,
maybe
came into this determination because they'd already settled. If they hadn't,
if they
settled,
kept pushing.
yeah, if the guy hadn't said, "Oh, I'll take the $45,000," he could have gotten a more stricter sentence.
Okay, I don't know. Look, at the end of the day,
It's so
the
dumb.
victim's been paid out. Obviously, what's happened is really wrong.
Mm-hmm.
This, I think, is the first time Bolter's done anything to this proportion that we know of.
Yeah, I think so.
Bolter, I think, while I don't like $3,000 fine, right? I don't like that. But, like, there's just so much about it that feels really
Okay.
strange.
How are you getting 10K from a fine that we'll talk about in Behm's TT? But how are you getting a 10K fine for striking and then 3K striking in a non-AFL situation? Tell me how that's fair.
Not in a professional setting. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Makes no sense to me, but it's something that is going to be talked about a lot, and we'll see how it goes throughout the year with how he does play.
Honestly, what could be more damaging is the reputational hit.
Yeah, correct. But clearly Richmond fans cheering him on after he assaulted someone in the middle of the game does not affect his reputation whatsoever. It was so crazy.
Oh my
was so
God, what
crazy.
a weird situation.
Yeah. But we'll move on now to the Aliir Aliir incident, because during the game, as Aliir rushed the ball through, actually, no, it didn't. He took a mark. The fan actually throws a fan. So, you know, the banners that have like a goal.
yeah, I know what you're saying.
He, you wrap it up and it goes into the folds, and he threw it at him.
I didn't even notice he threw it the first
Yeah.
time around, but yeah, that's as clear as day.
So throws it right at him, and I don't actually know what's happened from him to the fan. I think he was kicked out eventually.
Oh, it'd
But
have to be,
He's received a
absolutely.
2-year ban from the SCG.
Yeah, okay. So he's 13 years old, received a 2-year ban. So when he's 15, he'll be able to return. It's just such a strange, like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
If
And it looks
anyone
like
is defending him, stop, please.
There's
There's no excuse for that. And if
Yeah.
that wasn't punished, that sets a dangerous precedent to the point where
Completely.
now you can get away with throwing things at
Mhm.
players. It's just stupid.
Yeah,
That's stupid. We already get away so much with being able to yell at them and scream at them from behind the fences, right? That is taking it such a fast step that, punish, despite him being 13, right? That is a punishment that's necessary.
Yeah,
And
it is.
realistically, 2 years' time, he's going to be able to go back to games. I don't imagine it's really going to kill him too much.
no.
It's a punishment
gets
that I
to watch
think
it at
is
home.
completely fair on both ends.
Yeah, I would agree.
Whether they do anything past 2 years, they'll probably, depending on what he does in the next 2 years.
We don't know.
Not to say that the kid's going to be a future criminal, but
Hey, it could be.
Any kid could be a future criminal.
Not you. You're way past
If
being a
you're
kid.
watching this right now, are you going to be a future criminal? Let us know in the comments. I feel like that's a bad thing to say.
That's a very bad thing to say.
Oh my God. But main point, don't throw things at players. Don't even like touch the players. Don't do anything like that.
Hey, yo, pause.
Oh my God. Oh my God. This segment has gotten awful, but yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
we should-
self-explanatory.
We should skip past it, though.
Don't do it. Just don't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, literally. Speaking of don't do it, don't tear your ACL, Sam Darcy.
Yeah, put that on him. That's
Yeah.
his fault.
Yeah, completely.
No,
No, it's his fault he didn't tear his ACL.
you're saying he should have.
No, I'm not saying he should have, because he's going to be insanely good in the future and right now. But the Bulldogs, without him, are going to obviously have some questions up forward. Do they move Rory Lobb there? Because there's no Ugle-Hagan, there's no Darcy. Buku Khamis, Jed Bustlinger, and Liam Jones is not a too bad of a backline, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm trying to think outside of because their forwards a travesty right now. You've mentioned what your thoughts on Aaron Norton plenty of times.
Plenty of times.
You showed me beforehand the clip of him missing from straight in front, and that made me laugh. So
yes.
if you're relying on Aaron Norton, who, don't get me wrong, is skilled and can still put points on the board, he's definitely not Sam Darcy level at the moment.
Nope.
And then Buku Khamis is a really... I mean, he's going to have to develop quickly because they need some options now. Bont is probably going to get more and more time in that forward line, I reckon.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not. He's shown that he's very, very good down there.
Mm-hmm.
He's super impactful with the ball, as I mentioned previously. I'm just worried, right, with Sam Darcy being out, are they going to try and experiment a little too much?
Bevo always loves his experiments. And at the moment, their key tools, it's looking...
Because I don't like Buku Khamis being a forward, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, he didn't do too much over the weekend. But you got Lobb, Jones, O'Donnell, and Fraser can sometimes play as like a medium defender out back. And then you got Bustlinger in the VFL.
Mm-hmm.
You've also got... I think it might be Josh Shackey or something, number 43 for the Bulldogs, who's somehow still on the list. Can't remember his name.
Josh Shackey? No, he's not on the list.
No, it's number 43. I can't remember his name, but like he's a backup tall who's dog shit. But anyway, it's someone. And then they've got Norton, and that's sort of it around him, unfortunately.
I'd probably go Lobb in that forward. I think Lobb probably has... I mean, he's had his previous experience in the forward line. I think he's shown a lot of experience in the back line and looked really good there, but I think he's just going to be needed down there. I wouldn't mind making Bont more of a forward than a midfielder because the mids for the Dogs have kind of been getting it done.
They've been great so far.
They've been getting it done.
Yeah.
Fraser's looks really, really good.
Fraser, Sam Davidson's been in there as well. Matt Kennedy's done perfectly in that role.
I think there's Libba is self-explanatory. We saw his efforts on the weekend.
Ed Richards too.
Ed Richards. They've got midfielders who they can get it down there.
And Sanders is another one. He was very good as well.
Yeah, Riley Sanders. He's flown under the radar heavy so far to start the year, but fantastic midfielders. And they've shown really, really good signs while Bont has been on the sidelines.
Yep.
With Bont then coming back in, he'll get his midfield moments, but I'd love if they put him more as a forward because he's shown signs of being a really impactful. Signs is probably, it's not even signs. He's just a very good forward.
Yeah.
He's just a very good forward. I reckon he could be one of their more permanent changes. Not only for the sake of keeping him healthy. I think he could stay a bit healthier down there. But then you bring some more experience into that midfielder past Bont. From there, it becomes, once Darcy does come back, because he is planning to come back during the season, then what do? That's my only thinking as to why they wouldn't put Bont more forward.
Well,
because if Bont gives his time in the midfield up to all these young guys, and then when Darcy comes back, Bont goes back to the midfield, right? That's now your spot, right? Where you're best playing. What does it mean for all these young guys who now have midfield skills but don't know how to apply it to other positions? That's where I think it becomes a problem. And sure, you can say it's easy for these midfielders to kind of manage their skills into a new position, but I feel like every player is tasked with that, and it's all very dependent on how that kind of rotates and how each player rotates differently to each position as any kind of positional player would. I just think it's harder for a midfielder to find out how to play a forward or a back role. I think midfielders are as good as they are, and as much as they have to keep up with the game, when they're stuck into a position or they have to defend someone or they have to get themselves free on the forward line, that's when it becomes a problem. They have to try and figure out, all right, my midfield skills, how can I apply that to one particular job? You've got one job when you're in that forward or your back line.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
Okay.
Interesting to look at.
Yeah. They're not short of options. Short.
Shut up.
But there is a bit of experimentation that is required.
Yep.
However,
now
there is no experimentation required for
this
the greatest
is the award-winning segment.
Award-winning segment.
What award did you win again?
All of them.
All of them?
All of them. I deserve all of them.
Producer Ethan, can you give us one of the awards that he won?
He's not listening.
He doesn't care.
No. I don't want to hear this.
All of them.
Yeah, see?
You guys
I
are
do wanna
boring.
hear
You
this.
guys are boring as hell.
Oh, shut up.
Move
coming
on
from
to your
an
tribunal
80-year-old.
tasks.
Yes, well, I don't know the order we're doing them in, but there are a few things to talk about. And the first one, okay, Jack Higgins getting absolutely tackled by Lockie Bramble. This was given 0 weeks in a pretty clear sling tackle.
That is pretty bad, yeah.
That's not very good looking, is it? I've got the grading here. He was given careless conduct, which probably is. Low impact, which is 100% not low impact.
He hits his head on the floor, does he not?
Literally. Very clearly.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean,
the
maybe the
action-
shoulder first is what makes it low.
Does
but
that really matter?
I didn't think so.
So
With the way that the tackle looks and the way he reacts to it.
Mhm. Very clearly a bad tackle.
I'll tell you what,
And then
it's outcome again. Because he gets straight back up.
Yep.
Oh,
completely
man.
outcome based. And then they've given high contact, which given they've given high contact, it clearly means that they believe there was head contact.
That's
so then how
true.
do you grade it as low impact?
I don't know how you find a low impact out of that, to be honest.
So to me, this is a 1 weeker pushing a 2 weeker.
Yeah, I'd say 1 week. I'd agree with the 1 week. Again,
I just don't
we've
get it.
seen tackles like that. Maybe not. Maybe that's not the most ferocious one, but it's
No.
the action itself.
Correct.
It's the action itself that probably needs
Mhm.
to be given a week.
And then we are moving on to the other tackle from the game that resulted in Bond's first goal and got the crowd involved. Excuse the absolutely shocking framing because KO did not allow anything. It's a very difficult one to see, but it's Matt Kennedy picking up Darcy Wilson and taking him straight to the ground.
Well, you can see right at the end, his head is lying on the ground. He's clearly
He's-
in some pain, it looks like.
Yep.
But
He
drives his head into the ground, it looks like.
Yeah, so he has given no care to the player. He has not provided the expertise of a tackle because he's gone straight first head into the ground. You can very clearly see he's driven him into the ground and provided no support to the player in terms of doing the tackle safely. And it is very disappointing that I think this is 2 weeks. I think this is graded as high contact, high impact, and careless conduct. And to me, that's 3 weeks.
You think that's a 3 week
Or 2 weeks. Very clearly. He's taken both hands, so he's not provided any support for Wilson to be able to protect himself to the ground. He's driven his head into the ground, meaning it is high contact, and he's very clearly got forceful contact because he landed on him. He's literally ended up on top of him.
It looks like he doesn't even get the free kick for it either.
And there's no free kick.
Yeah, I wish we got a better angle of this. Because if we got the other side, we could really get a look at it.
Yeah.
Because I can see that it's not a great tackle, right? He doesn't care. He doesn't have the duty of care bringing him to the ground in a safe enough manner. But I can't see enough of it to know how heavy the impact was. You could maybe argue that him lying there afterwards is the impact and the outcome.
He took about 10 seconds to get up on his feet. So
Yeah.
clearly forceful contact.
Yeah. I continuously say it in this segment. I hate that we have to go off of how is victim the right word? the person on the other end.
Yeah.
We go off their reaction. If he was knocked out, absolutely would be 3 weeks. And I just hate that we're going off that. It needs to continue to be the action.
Mm-hmm. The only thing that I could see him potentially getting off is that if we get another angle of it, it's that his chest hits the floor first and then it's his head. So it's that second motion that his head hits the ground. But it doesn't look like that's the case, in my opinion.
Okay. That's fair. I think it's
And-
still a little up in debate. I
Yeah.
wouldn't give it 3 weeks off of that one.
I think that one's worse than the Bramble one. But this is the third time now where we've had an incident like this with Connor Nash basically striking Brian Myers in the head, and he was concussed. So very clearly, this will be another 3 week suspension. We've seen Scrimshaw doing this on Ridley, and we saw Pat Voss doing this on Nick Floston. Both of those are 3 weeks. They're pretty similar where you kind of make a play on the ball, but kind of don't. I think the Scrimshaw one was the worst, but this is very similar to the Pat Voss on Nick Floston one, which also got 3 weeks. So
Yep.
I think this is pretty simple and is the right, or should be the right incident
Yeah.
and outcome.
Yeah, agreed. Obviously, the outcome is very, very bad, and
Mhm.
we hope Brian Myers is recovering well. But I think the 3 weeks on the action for sure.
And then the one thing that I want to talk about as well, which we don't have a clip of, is Brodie Grundy getting a $10,000 fine for his third offence of striking, I believe. I'll just double check. Yes, Brodie Grundy, third offence. He got a $10K fine. That was intentional conduct, low impact, and body conduct.
He just
fine.
needs to learn from Noah Balta, is all I've kind of found out.
Hey, he got a 10K fine. Noah Balta got a 3K fine. You tell me what makes more sense.
Well,
It's
he
just
didn't do
so
it a third time. It was his first time.
Hey, if Balta does it a couple more times, maybe he gets a 10K fine.
You got a new photo this week for Ranking the League. That's
You
sick.
still don't, Mr. Prego.
Okay, all right, hold on. I'm pretty sure I took that photo. I took that one.
No, James Ward did.
Oh, yeah, no, I think you're right. No,
Yeah.
I thought I took that one.
Shout out James Ward.
Shout out Jimmy. We love Jimmy.
Yes, we do.
I miss him.
I don't.
Just a bit unrelated. A bit of an inside one there. All right, power rankings. This one is one that we have talked about to each other in regards to how we want to go about power rankings. We kind of want to do it every 6 weeks is what we came to, because then
Well,
you finish up with our 4th version of this in week 24, the final one.
Yep.
So this is number 1, our very first power rankings.
Yes.
And
18 through 1 is how we're going to be doing things, and we'll go bouncing back from each other. I think it's a pretty clear 18.
West Coast.
The Eagles.
Yes.
The West Coast Eagles. They're the only winless team all year. And
They very easily could actually be up. I would argue that my number 16 could be 18 if they had managed to get that win over Essendon.
Yeah.
And
fair.
and you'll know who it is when I say it. All right,
There's-
17.
I've got North Melbourne.
I had Melbourne.
Okay.
I put Melbourne there because of the fact that they have come off a 10-point win against Freo, so definitely an impressive one. And I can absolutely see your reasoning behind North Melbourne being in the 17th position. I can understand that completely.
It's just uncompetitiveness.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I think more people would probably have North 17 than Melbourne, but I think they are still interchangeable.
Does that mean at 16 you
At
have
16,
North?
I have North, and
At
the
16, I've got
reason,
Melbourne.
and the reason that I said before that I changed this with 18 is because of Melbourne's win.
Yeah.
Because Melbourne have recently got the win. That's why I put them at 17. North would then slide down to 18 off of four losses in a row. So,
agreed.
they stick at 16 for me.
Yeah. The reason I've got Melbourne above North, even though North did win, is that was 4 weeks ago. And aside from a good performance against Adelaide, it's been very uncompetitive from North Melbourne.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I just think Melbourne very easily could be argued as number 18 until this week. They could have been the least, especially with West Coast nearly
Pipping at Essendon.
getting Essendon. Not just that, Brisbane.
Yeah,
That
true.
could have made people put them at 17. So Melbourne could absolutely have been an 18th place power ranking team. But with that win, they move up a spot.
Yep. At 15, I have Essendon.
I have Richmond.
Yeah, okay.
I put Richmond there because I could have easily seen them being in 17th or 16th.
Yep.
So again, I don't like moving teams too far up because the minute that you do, right? And I mean, for example, North Melbourne.
Yeah.
How many people do you reckon put North Melbourne out of the bottom 4 after their win against Melbourne in their power rankings?
A fair few.
A fair few.
Yeah.
So now North would absolutely be sliding on a lot of people's power rankings. Hence why I don't want to push Richmond too high up. But again, a fantastic win. This could easily be a 2-spotter where they move up from 17th to 15th here for me.
Yep. Fair. The reason I have Essendon 15 is because they almost lost to the worst team in the competition.
That's completely fair.
So, they haven't been that good in their wins, and in their losses, they've looked pretty poor, I've thought. So, obviously, I am a hate watcher.
Yeah.
Anyway, 14. I could not put my 14th team below Essendon. And 14 is St Kilda.
So that's a personal thing, is it?
Very much so.
I've put Sydney.
Yeah, okay.
I've put Sydney.
Fair enough.
Come off some very... look, you can't get angry at the Collingwood loss. I think Collingwood is a very, very honourable team to lose to, especially if it's not over 50 points, realistically. But their loss against Port Adelaide was very concerning because I wasn't very high on Port. Even after their win against Hawthorn, that definitely pushed them up. But Port beating Sydney, I pushed them down a little bit further.
Yeah, fair enough. I've got St Kilda 2 poor weeks in a row after 3 good weeks. they just look very out there compared to Western Bulldogs. And it's a tough week because their midfield is shit. But 13th for me is Sydney. Yeah, as you said, sort of not rating Port as highly. Clearly, them losing at home to that team doesn't help their chances at all.
Funny that. I've got St Kilda.
We've just gone swap for
we're
swap,
switching
basically.
around. I reckon we could probably say the same things about these
Yeah.
spots, so I don't know how much we need to really drag on about it. But
No.
big loss to Western Bulldogs, which definitely hurts them. I could have put these guys a little higher if it wasn't for my next team, which is 18, 17, 16, 12th.
Got there in the end.
So number 12 for me, I put Carlton.
No way.
You've got
Yeah, I
Carlton too.
at 12.
Big win, obviously. It could be an overreaction. It really could. But the Richmond loss is looking a little more
It's not
excusable
looking
now.
as bad, but again, they've only beat West Coast and North Melbourne, so
But
you
they've
can't really
beaten,
rate their
they've
wins.
beaten North by a lot.
Yeah, they've
and
put
they've
them to
beaten
the sword.
West Coast by a fair bit
Yeah,
too.
They
They're finally doing what they should be doing. And their next matchup, who I can't remember.
They played Geelong.
That's going to be a tough one. And that'll really tell us whether this is a bottom 4 side, which I don't think Carlton
No, definitely
is,
not. But it
or
tells
whether
us
they're
if
a middle of
top
the
8.
pack, because I don't see them winning it.
I still see them potentially winning.
That's fair.
I still do.
Again, big matchups like that. Carlton Geelong is a fairly big one. Crazy things happen. I think Carlton just needs to remain respectable. 30 within a margin of 30 points, I think, is a positive sign for Carlton.
Yeah,
If they lose
that's
by
fair.
30 or less, I think that's good. But
Yeah.
Carlton's 12 for me.
I'd probably make it under 20, but yeah, that's
That's fair.
understandable.
Mhm.
My number 11. Give me 1 second. I just lost the page. My 11 is Richmond, and
Whoa!
I've got them kind of high.
That's really,
Because-
I mean, I understand. Yeah, go on.
Okay, so beat Carlton, got whacked by Port and St Kilda, but then really pushed Brisbane, got smashed by Fremantle Shore, but then beat Gold Coast, who were the last undefeated team in the league. And so when you look at it that way, they've still got their experienced players performing, and they are going to be uncompetitive. We know that. But for them to have already got 2 wins on the board, I think is really impressive. And I'm just rewarding that, honestly. I think they've got a lot of young players that they can just swap and change, and then their experienced players are just going to stay there. If we see this from Taranto, Hopper, Vlosten, Lynch for the rest of the year, they're not going to be anywhere near 2 wins. They're going to be closer to the 4, 5, 6 range.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, but I mean, they've just been smacked in most of their other games that they've lost, right?
They have, yes.
And I'm trying to think, their Carlton win wasn't that big. It was very close.
They don't need to win big, though. You just need to bank the 4 points, and they've done that twice already.
I guess when you think about
okay.
it, like and you compare it to our power rankings, right? Carlton is below, for you,
Yep.
below Richmond.
Yep.
And Richmond, for me, is only 2 spots away from Carlton. So it's a fairly
Carlton
even
lost to
matchup.
Richmond. I can just say Carlton lost to Richmond, and that's why they're above them.
Yeah, I guess so. But at the same time, I like to think that Richmond, those massive losses, those clear signs of them being a bottom of the ladder team, are reasons why they would be lesser on the power rankings, right? Sure, you could say Carlton lost to Richmond, but they lost to Richmond by 3 points.
It's not how good they are; it's the form they are in.
I
This is
could
power rankings.
yeah, but then I could say Carlton are in a much better form because they're 2 on the trot after.
But I'm saying
70
who
big
they've
wins.
played. Okay, if Carlton were to play Gold Coast right now, would they win?
I mean, if you were thinking based on what we've seen, no, they wouldn't win.
Richmond just beat Gold Coast.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I still think Carlton's form has been better as of late because we're talking about like I understand the hypothetical of Carlton couldn't beat them now, but Richmond did, so that would mean Carlton better. I think if Carlton and Richmond were to play right now, who do you think would win?
Carlton, Richmond.
Yeah.
I think you could make an argument based off of the teams that played that Carlton could very easily win.
Exactly.
But so could Richmond.
I guess that's just where we agree to disagree.
If
Very good debate, sir. That was very nice.
if Carlton get in front in the first half, they're not winning.
Okay.
That's what I'd say.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Mhm.
I have put down Essendon.
At 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fair enough. I had them a lot lower. I
get
Yeah.
that because the wins aren't on great teams, but a win's a win's a win. You could definitely make excuses as to why they'd be lower. I think I'm just starting to see other teams maybe in a bit less of a light of Essendon right now because Essendon, despite right, you think of Gold Coast, and I've got Gold Coast higher, obviously, but you think of teams like that. At least Essendon have been beating the teams they probably should be beating. So they beat Melbourne.
They beat
beat West Coast, and then the other games, right? They beat. Did they beat Port Adelaide?
They did.
So there's a
But
game.
we don't rate Port Adelaide. That's what I'm talking about. Like they got battered by Adelaide, completely battered by Adelaide, and they've already had 2 byes. So it's very tough to say.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like take anything out when they've had 2 byes.
Okay.
Well, technically 1, but yeah, 2 byes because of the Gold Coast game that we got rearranged.
Yep, that's all right. Who have you got in 10?
In 10, I have Fremantle. I think mixed results. Obviously, they did lose to Melbourne, but they are dealing with injuries. Not an excuse, but they have had a lot of key position injuries. They got 1 player back in Darcy and also Hayden Young, but they lost Luke Jackson as well. They got a bit of mixed form. They haven't really beaten anyone really of note, which is why I don't have them in the 8. But I think the way they've played has shown me a bit more signs than a team like an Essendon or a team like a Sydney or even a team like Carlton. I think they've just shown a bit more promise with how they've played.
Yeah, and pretty much for the same reasons. That's why I've got Freo at 9.
Yeah.
They're the next one. They are, 9 is the middle of the road. They are at the moment the Western Bulldogs of the league. They are the team that, to me, just seems like they can't figure it out, but they haven't fallen off the horse just yet.
And their results also prove that lose to one of the best teams in Geelong, lose to a good team in Sydney, beat West Coast.
That
beat
Sydney one
Bulldogs.
could be debatable with their current circumstances.
Yeah, but again, Sydney were slightly healthier at that stage.
Fair enough.
And that was at home. So it shows that if you're losing at home to a team that hasn't been fully fit, it's a bit difficult. Beat Richmond and lost to Melbourne. So just inconsistent
Super
form.
weird form from Freo this year, and it's why they're middle of the road. What have you got for 9?
At 9, I've got Port Adelaide. When talking about tough form, that's also very similar.
Yep.
Lost to St Kilda, lost to Essendon, and then come out and beat Hawthorn and Sydney.
Yeah.
Hawthorn and Sydney. So
Super.
I can't make too much of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I'll spoil a little bit, but I've got Port a little higher than maybe some would based off that Hawthorn win. Again, I made the weird decision to say Hawthorn were guaranteed top 4.
Yeah.
So I thought when that win happened, I'm like, whoa, where did this come from?
And
that win against Sydney, despite despite what I said before, at Sydney is, I think, probably a big thing to bring into account there.
Yep.
So you had Port at 8 or not?
I had Port at 9.
9. Who have you got at 8?
I've got West. Who did you have at 9?
Fremantle.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. I had Bulldogs at 8.
I had Bulldogs at 8.
There we are.
We got another agreement.
Yep.
I love it when things go to plan.
These middle of the pack teams, they've got inconsistent not performances, but inconsistent results. So you look at the Bulldogs, they're probably more consistent, which is why I have them slightly above.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. They have performed, that same middle of the road that we keep bringing up with this team, but they have shown more consistent signs.
Yep.
They've shown a midfield that works consistently. They've shown, other than now, a forward line with signs of life.
Yeah, they haven't had a bad loss yet, and you can't really say that losing to Collingwood when Collingwood pretty much healthy is a bad loss. You can't say that losing to Brisbane was a bad loss, even though they were pretty clearly in front at half time. And aside from that, Fremantle at home again, not a tough loss. So they haven't had a tough loss, and they've had some really good wins as well.
Yeah.
So can't really
bit above the threshold.
If they were able to beat Brisbane, they'd be much higher. But that's why I've got them just at 8.
Yep. 4-7, I'll start is Port Adelaide.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And I think again you could make the same consistency arguments as you do with all kind of middle of the road teams.
Yeah.
This one, though, is based off of the fact that big Hawthorn win just did something. It just did it for me. That win itself made me think, okay, they're still in that upper echelon, I reckon, of teams.
Yeah.
And on their best days, though, their midfield is fantastic. Their forward line is probably the biggest question mark. Georgiades has done all right at times. I think the highlights of their forward line have been Willie Rioli and Sam Powell-Pepper.
Yeah.
They've been the highlights for me. Jeremy Finlayson, has he?
Hasn't played
I
too
didn't
much at
think
all.
So. But there's good signs over there. There's some really good signs. And coming off of 2 wins is also another thing to bring out. I think 2 wins in a row is what they're at the moment. Did they win?
Yeah.
What was their game against?
They lost to St Kilda before Hawthorn.
St Kilda. That's
So
right.
yeah, just 2 wins. In 7, I have Hawthorn. It's a pretty steep drop, but against two difficult opponents, I think the way they're playing is more so why I have them here. They didn't look as good as they did in their first 4 wins, and they haven't looked very good in their last couple of games. They did perform really well against
Drop them
Geelong.
to 7
It's tough, I know.
after a loss against Geelong is quite wild.
But I think they're going to have some struggles. I don't think their forward line has been very good at all. There's no way we just scratched our heads at the exact same time. That's
Shut
so
up.
funny. I could have had them also at 4th very easily. Like for me, 4, 5, 6, 7 are all interchangeable.
Yeah.
So to be honest, they're all teams that have shown inconsistencies, and Hawthorn in their performance have showed inconsistencies. And I just think that no Will Day now is a big impact. That's all.
11, 10, 9, 8, 7.
There's no way you haven't
Because
done
I'm
each
at
number.
7 here and it's Adelaide. For me, 7 is Adelaide. Did I say
Okay.
7 was Port before?
No, you said yes. You did.
Yeah, so I think we've been counting it 1 ahead. That's all right.
I haven't.
Oh, God, I'm so dumb. All right, so 18 West Coast, 17 Melbourne, North 16, Richmond 15, Sydney 14, St Kilda 13, Carlton 12.
You didn't say Richmond at 15.
Oh,
That's
Richmond
why.
15.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, move on.
So, 7 for me then is Adelaide.
Yep.
7. So Adelaide, been a very interesting season so far for them. We obviously know how great their forward line has been just besides last week. They still managed to pull out a win against the team that is above them, so I'll spoil that. But Adelaide have been showing some fantastic looks so far to start the season. Obviously a close loss to Gold Coast, who, of course, probably have dropped since last week for most people. Adelaide, though, they show a lot of really good signs in their forward half, and then they start to fade off a little in the back half. So I think they are in that, they're in the finals talk, of course,
Yeah.
but they're in the back end of that.
Yeah, they're no
still.
longer pushing for top 4, in my opinion.
I think Adelaide still have some work to do outside of that forward line,
Yeah.
and probably even a little bit in the middle, because there'll be the likes of Saligo in there sometimes, and he can sometimes concern me. I don't think Laird ever gets midfield
He's
minutes
not
anymore.
Nah,
But even on the half back has been concerning.
a little bit. They've just got a lot of okay options. and
Yeah.
he's becoming part of that.
Yeah, and you just think of the likes of Dawson is like you're confirmed, ones that you always know are going to be fantastic most weeks, if not every week. But yeah, outside of that forward line, everything in the midfield, there's things to work on in the midfield, and there's especially some things to work on in the back line, I reckon.
Yep, fair enough.
Who have you got?
6, I have the team that Adelaide just beat in GWS.
Yep.
They haven't been at their best, we know that, but a lot of their stars are still performing. It's the only reason I have them below Adelaide is because they just lost to them, even though there was no Hogan, but he's only played 3 games,
That's
so you've got to
completely
take that
fair.
into account.
Yeah.
Their backline as always has been good. Their midfield's performing, but yeah, just can't put them above Adelaide, who is the team I have in 5th.
Yeah, well, 6th for me is GWS, as I mentioned before as well. Showing great. They're the only team to beat Collingwood so far. That's
Yep.
one thing you always have to kind of bring into account right now, because as they sit atop, you kind of have to use them as the standard. And yeah, beating them is definitely something that's good to put on your resume at the moment. Some decent wins here and there. They lost also to Hawthorn. Is
Yeah.
another one of their losses. I think outside of Adelaide is their other loss. So 2 decent teams that they have lost to. So nothing that you can really bash against them. I mean, that Adelaide game was definitely winnable, 100%. But outside of that, they've looked really, really good in their wins. And I
Yep.
think despite their losses, they've been pretty admirable losses. So
Mhm.
they are pretty high up there, considering
For
a
sure.
4-2 start.
Yeah. I mentioned fifth Adelaide. You talked about pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. Who's your fifth?
Gold Coast.
Yeah. Okay.
I have dropped Gold Coast down to fifth because I'm often very much against big changes because I don't like to overreact. But Gold Coast were like top 2 with their power rankings before
Agreed.
this week. They are
Agreed.
fifth now
I put them fourth.
because how.
You, as a team that should be top
I don't
4,
think I need to explain it.
No, we talked a lot about it before.
I don't think I need
It's
to.
it should be a bankable win, and unfortunately, the performance showed that it wasn't a bankable win yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we know there's a lot of development still left in that team.
Absolutely, but their
Who's-
wins have been
Yeah.
fantastic.
Who's your 4?
Hawthorn.
Yep. Okay.
I've put Hawthorn at the 4.
Yep.
2 losses on the trot now. So they are definitely kind of showing their weaknesses now.
Mhm.
But again, a respectable loss to Geelong, which is why I was quite surprised to hear you say it's 7. And their loss to Port Adelaide is definitely the biggest question mark on them. So there's an argument that they could even be dropped to 5th against Gold Coast. But again, what the hell was that loss to Richmond? I can't get over it. Hawthorn, though, they showed signs of being a premiership contender.
Yeah.
And I don't see it from Gold Coast in their games, I'll be honest.
I see.
And maybe it's because I've got
aspects.
that little bit of bias considering how
Mhm.
long they've been trying to even just fight for finals. I can't just go
Yeah.
from I want you to go to finals to I want you to be a premiership contender. And I think while it's a pretty big picture take on a thing like power rankings, right, it's not the only reason why I put Gold Coast in 5th and Hawthorn in 4th. I think those two can be interchangeable.
Yeah.
But I think with Hawthorn being more of a consistently good team as of recent years, them being in 4th makes a bit more sense than Gold Coast being in 4th.
Yep. Fair. Who's your third?
Third for me. Have you said your 4th? What was your 4th?
My was Gold Coast.
Gold Coast.
yeah.
Okay. My third was Brisbane.
Yeah, I think we've got the same. It's Brisbane, Geelong, Collingwood.
Yes, for me
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the top 3 then altogether
Yeah.
because Brisbane, Geelong, Collingwood. Why does that make sense to us in total then? Because I think you
Yeah.
could make arguments for Geelong being one right
You
now.
could, for sure. I think structurally, Collingwood still have been the best.
Yep.
In terms of not performing the best, but still banking wins, has been Brisbane. It's similar to Hawthorn, but obviously Geelong, Brisbane just only lost to Collingwood. Now, there's still a lot of improvement for all these teams. I think Geelong, when they get a couple players back, Stewart and Smith haven't fully played altogether. Still missing Henry. I just think that some of the outside players for Geelong haven't fully been their best. Like Cameron hasn't been great. Neil's had a few down weeks. Stengel hasn't been incredible like he was the last couple years. And their backline is still, to me, potentially, like, you can still target it. I think Hawthorn hasn't had a strong key forward line at all this year, and they were able to get on top of the Geelong backline at the moment. So that's sort of where I see Geelong being that step below, because I don't have a Darcy Moore. And that's why I see Collingwood have someone everywhere. Their forward line is probably the only question, but their small forward fleet is amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm just going off of what my matchups were before. I think Brisbane were either 1 or 2 last week, considering how they were undefeated. Collingwood quite comfortably beating them on their home turf. Obviously pushes Collingwood to 1 to me. Geelong also off of their recent form and their big win against Hawthorn, because I still have Hawthorn ranked quite highly. I pushed them up to 2. And Brisbane, I just wish they had a bit more fight in them. I really do. And that's why I pushed them down to 3 after being either 1 or 2, because of the fact that, I think they're just recent form. They've also shown signs of weakness, as I've mentioned previously already in this podcast. So I think in terms of current form, they're sitting in 3.
Yep.
So
fair enough.
I like that we had our own reasonings, but came out with the same result. It's
In the end.
Kind of cute, kind of funny, you know. Don't look at me like that, you little freak. All right, let's move on.
We're going to my inner James Ward.
Why does he keep getting cameos in this?
I don't know.
All right, we're going to move on to our second last segment. We've got a preview of the Anzac Day clash. Now, we like to try and put the biggest matchup of the week on there, like in terms of how they'll kind of go out against each other. Comparison. So obviously last week, Geelong Hawthorn, that was a fantastic matchup.
Yep.
I feel like, though, this week, I mean, Anzac Day last year produced a
It's-
draw.
Yeah,
So there's always a chance that this matchup can find a way to
it does.
push itself
We're
to
g-
the top.
We're gonna see like a lot of good performances. I feel like individually, but again, I don't think you can go past Collingwood at this stage.
Nope.
We haven't seen the best from Essendon yet. Whether we see that in a big game like this is going to be interesting. The reason this is the game of the round is because it's Anzac Day, not because this is the best team-to-team matchup.
Yeah.
I see Collingwood pretty clearly. I think they're going to be really defensively solid against this Essendon forward line. I think their midfield is actually a really good matchup. How Goldstein plays with no Draper is going to be very interesting too. But I think looking at Collingwood's forward line, I don't trust Essendon's back line yet. And I think their smalls will get on top big time.
Yeah. I think there's too many times where the Pies will be able to just out wrestle the
Yep.
Bombers in this game.
Mhm.
I think they'll get over the top of them in the midfield. I think there's some signs of life for Essendon's back line, but we talked about just how consistent and how good their smalls have been. You got your Jamie Elliott, who's probably been outshined a bit by Bobby Hill as of
Yeah.
recent. Lots of really, really good things to look forward to in this matchup if you're a Collingwood fan. And I think if you're a Bombers fan, you just hope that the moment will be able to get to them and they'll be able to make it a very, very tight and entertaining contest.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think we need to talk about it too much. We can sort of get
Not
through
really.
all the
Anzac Day
others.
speaks for itself
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah.
Let's have a look, though, at the entire round
D's Tigers,
7
two-
rundown.
Two bottom four contenders who have just got a win. I think
Works out all right. Not too bad.
Yeah.
Lucky AFL. How's that?
I think this is Melbourne pretty clearly. Honestly, I think there's just a lot more talent performing at its best here. There's still a shitload of talent in this Melbourne team. Damn, we haven't sworn at all this episode. We've done really
No,
well.
you've said it a little bit.
Nah, not really. I think, yeah, as I said, I think with the new forward line look of Melbourne, they could really contend against this Tigers backline with no Noah Balta again this week. It's going to be tough for them to contend. And I just see Melbourne having that midfield dominance that they probably couldn't get over a younger Gold Coast team.
I was going to say, I think it's dependent on which Tigers team comes out. If we get the Tigers that played against Gold Coast and Carlton, that really, really hard fighting, got nothing to lose type.
Yeah.
Even the Brisbane one, even the Brisbane Tigers, where they
That's a good point.
didn't quit and they managed to make it a less than 30-point game, right? If they come out with that type of intensity, they could give it to the D's. They really could. I think this is such a coin toss. Just for the sake of being different in this one, I'm going to go Tigers. I'm going to say they take it.
By how much?
I don't know.
Close game?
Yeah, say
okay.
close game.
Okay, I'll give it by 8 points.
I'll give it by, screw you, 7 points.
Okay,
Tigers.
fine. Okay, fine.
All right, Pies versus Bombers. We didn't give a prediction, but we'll say
No.
right now, I'm going Pies by 30.
Okay. I see their system obviously coming out on top, but I think accuracy might struggle just as like a random prediction. I think they'll kick 5 more behinds than they do goals. And I think they'll get over the line by 16 points, just as a random guess, because, that's what I do.
And that's also kind of what big momentous occasions kind of do as well.
Yep.
Dockers Crows.
It's going to be a very interesting game.
Optus Stadium.
Yeah, at Optus. Probably more informed team is Adelaide. However, Fremantle back at home now. I don't think that Luke Jacken's going to be back, but Hayden Young and Sean Darcy will be fit. I actually see Dockers getting over the line here. I think that their midfield should be able to get over the top, and I think that their back line will have a huge bounce-back game. Whether they go tall again is going to be the interesting thing because it's 4 talls against 4 talls, potentially, in this game.
I'm going Crows.
Mm-hmm.
I think the form has just been too good for the
Yep.
Crows. A big win against GWS. Obviously, that was on their home turf,
Yep.
but I think they've still shown signs away from home, right?
Mhm.
A close loss to Gold Coast at Gold Coast is obviously a big one to point out. But I think the Crows will have what it takes to beat this team.
Yep.
I think the signs that the Crows have shown to contend against great teams is just going to be too much.
Fair.
Where
Where do you see the margin at though? I want to get this
15
done.
to the Crows, I reckon.
Okay, so still a good game.
I think it'll still be a good game.
Yeah.
The Dockers definitely have what it takes to make it a good game. Let's go Saints Lions at Marvel.
Lions by 800 points.
Is this one of those the outcomes already type things?
Okay, I'm pretty sure 5 of 6 with Saint games, with the only one being Port Adelaide that I got incorrect. And to be honest, Lions losing does not help me. Cam Rayner has been really bad this year, and he always tortures us. So I'm booking him in for 4 goals.
He's going to find the form all of a sudden.
100%. He's going to kick 4 goals, and I think Eric Hipwood's going to kick 2 goal of the year contenders. He'll miss easy set shots and kick goal of the year contenders.
So how many?
I have them winning by. Won't go as far. I'll go 28, but I just think that they're the better team.
I'm going Lions by 50 plus. Let's go.
Cheers.
56.
56. Wow. Big margins.
Oh, God. Not this next one. Oh, this is going to be a tough one to watch. Port versus North.
This is a game where I just randomly see Power coming out and shitting themselves.
It never happens against us. Never, ever happens against us.
Okay.
It's only happened once, and it was against Gold Coast, and they weren't even that good that year. It was last year.
When are they good, to be honest?
Yeah.
I say 7 points.
How many?
Very close.
I say Port by 60.
60. Jeez, you guys absolutely suck. You guys absolutely suck. This is embarrassing.
No, I'll tell you what, we'll keep it close till halfway through the 4th quarter, and then all of a sudden they'll start just kicking goal.
59 points.
Yeah.
I just think, their midfield should really get on top at home. Jordan Sweet will have a good game around the ground against Cherry.
Sherry's also been very, very disappointing as of late.
Yeah, he has had a couple down weeks. But I just think their forward line will get over the top of your back line. And I see Aliir and Aliir, who's been very good this year, being able to stop Zerha and Curtis and Larky.
Yeah. I agree with that all. Giants versus the Dogs.
Very interesting game.
Very, very interesting game. Giants now don't have to game plan for Darcy.
Correct. Do the Dogs need to game plan against Hogan? We'll have to see.
That's
I
true.
believe he is in.
2 big forward targets.
Yeah. I'll check the injury teams if you want to go through the game for a little bit.
Yeah, well, the Giants and the Dogs, obviously Giants coming off of a loss at Adelaide Oval to the Crows. It really showed just how much they miss someone like Hogan, because it even opens up the likes of Toby Green.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this game completely comes down to the availability of their players. Obviously, one player doesn't make an entire team, but clearly when one of those players you rely on is such a heavy impact on the scoreboard, it's going to mean a lot if he's not there.
Yeah.
Compared to the Dogs losing Darcy, at least they have some forward targets, Norton in particular. When you think of the Giants, I think Callum Brown is one that I can remember from the Giants.
Hogan should be back.
Hogan should be back. If that's the case, I'm going to go Giants by, let's go 11. I think the Dogs can definitely make this a fun and exciting game.
I agree with the Giants tip. I think the midfield battle is going to be awesome to watch here.
Yeah.
I think you're looking at Bont versus Tom Green, looking at Libba versus Callahan, you're looking at so many other big battles. I think how that plays out will determine the game. I've said this like every time I've talked about the midfield battles, but I just find it so interesting that these are 2 really stacked, talented teams that I just think that obviously as there's no Darcy, the back line of the Giants should get this done pretty comfortably. So I'll go a solid 20-point margin, and the Giants continue to just get the wins, unfortunately.
Suns versus Swans. At People First Stadium.
Gold Coast don't lose there. Sydney have really struggled to start the year.
Yeah.
I think that's where I see this game going.
Yep.
So
I don't think that much more needs to be said, really.
Yeah.
I think Gold Coast takes this by 35.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say 42. I think it's a bounce-back game. There's not going to be too many people there, so there's not going to be a huge home ground advantage in terms of that, but Hardwick's going to get into them. Whether we see that aggression that we've seen from them this year is going to be interesting, because they have overdone it at times. But yeah, as I said, I just think that it's a bounce back game for them.
Yeah.
For a good team too.
Blues versus Cats. Now, I had mentioned that I think this is a pretty easy game to tip, but you said that it could go the other way.
Yes.
Can you explain just very quickly why you think that may be the case?
they get Macca back. So you've got Macca and Curnow for their first game of the year together. We've seen that Cripps going forward has really helped break out the midfield of Chera, Hewitt, and Walsh. We've seen that really work well together. And I think that you've got Neil versus Wiedering, and then the only way I see Carlton losing, honestly, is if Cameron just goes absolutely ballistic. That's the only... I actually see Carlton being favourites in this game. I think that their midfield battle will be interesting because Carlton are a lot more of a congested team compared to Geelong being more of an outside team. But again, you look at De Koning versus Stanley, that's a huge matchup. If De Koning gets on top, then that really shows how good this Carlton team can be. And we saw last year, Carlton absolutely whacked Geelong when it was going to be a really good game. And I just think that they perform really well against this team.
Yeah, well, I mean, Blues coming off of 2 big wins, but I think Cats' momentum has been so good. Their play has been so good as of late. I see it the other way in that I just don't know how the Cats really can find a way. Like, unless the Blues forward line with the 2 guys together really gets going, like really has an outstanding game, like their prime years, I feel like this is Cats. I'm not going to say in a blowout, but I'd say 20 points, which to me is still a pass for Carlton. Because this is kind of what this is kind of what I want from them. I want them to be competitive. If they win it, that's even better. They've beaten my expectations, but I think if it was any other team than the Cats or Collingwood, then maybe I could agree with you. But I just think Cats have been playing too well as of late, and they can keep this form going.
Fair enough. I'm just of the opinion that I think Carlton get back in a 3 and 4. And pushing once again to make finals.
That'll be helpful for him. All right, last one. Hawks, Eagles at Marvel. This should be easy, but we've seen how that goes for us plenty of times.
I'm going Hawks by 60.
I'm going Hawks by 45.
45. Give him a 50 bomb. I just think that, again, West Coast had their chance to win a game early in the season, and they really just weren't able to get there, unfortunately.
That definitely could break some mental fortitude and mental confidence within the Eagles, that loss. Definitely could, because that's a game they knew they could have gotten, and now they haven't.
If they did end up winning, I very easily could have had them really challenging Hawthorn, given Hawthorn have been down in the dumps. But if McGovern doesn't have an insanely good game, if Aliir Aliir doesn't get back to his best, and if their forward line doesn't really compete against the Hawks' backs, who've been pretty down again over the last couple of weeks, then they're really not going to be able to compete with them.
Yeah. Well, that is everything AFL related within the last week. We've had a look at everything, and next week is going to be a really, really exciting one. I'm really keen for next week because we're going to have our first co-host guest.
What? No way.
He's being replaced. No, he is going to be joining us. So, Behm, you get to keep your seat. You're all right.
Yay.
We won't let you guys know who it is just yet. But I'm almost 100% it's confirmed that he's interested and wants to. I've revealed the gender. That takes out 50% of the world population. Have a guess from there.
It takes about 95% of the population of footy fans as well.
Either way, I'm really excited to bring them on. And I think you guys will find it really exciting too. Will be a really, really nice guest. So I'm keen as a bean to see what you guys think about this episode and what you guys... Who do you think we brought in? Who do you possibly think Zero Access Footy has access to?
Leave your guesses in the comments below, not your comments in the guesses below.
Oh my God, another moment. Another classic moment.
I've had about 8 aneurysms today already.
Either way, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, and go over and listen to us on Spotify if you can't see our beautiful faces, if you're on the go. Rate us 5 stars over there as well, and I appreciate you all tuning in to watch this one. We'll see you next week for a big episode. We hit double digits, and I'm really excited. We'll see you all next week.